Listen carefully, because what you are about to read is not speculation. It is not fear-mongering built on rumor or internet panic. What is happening right now in real time, in the distribution networks feeding every major grocery chain across this country, is a quiet, systematic removal of specific products that millions of households depend on. And the people making those decisions are counting on you not noticing until it is already done. The products disappearing are not the ones being talked about on the news. They are not on any government shortage list. There are no press releases, no warnings, no alerts pushed to your phone. The removal process is silent by design, buried inside quarterly margin reviews and import contract renewals, decided by grocery chain buyers and corporate offices months before you ever walk down an aisle and notice the gap where a product used to sit. By March 2026, at least 15 specific products are actively in that removal pipeline. Some cost under $1, several have nutritional profiles that cannot be replicated by anything currently being positioned to replace them. And every single one of them is still sitting on shelves right now, available, affordable, and almost entirely ignored by the people who need them most. What follows is not a guess about what might happen. These are distribution decisions that have already been made, documented through supplier communications, chain buyer announcements, and inventory consolidation signals that most consumers never see. The window to act is open. It will not stay open. Number 15. Canned artichoke hearts, the micronutrient fortress, being gutted from the international aisle before we even reach the headline items. There is a product sitting in the international or specialty section of your grocery store that most people have never purchased a single time in their lives. And it is one of the most nutritionally concentrated shelf-stable vegetables available at any price point. Canned artichoke hearts are being restructured out of standard distribution at several major chains. The SKU reduction is not dramatic. It is not announced. It is the slow shrinking of shelf presence, the disappearance of store brand options, and the quiet replacement of the space with products carrying significantly better margins. Here's why this should alarm you. A single cup of canned artichoke hearts delivers more prebiotic fiber than almost any other canned vegetable on the shelf. Prebiotic fiber feeds the specific beneficial bacteria in your gut that regulate immune response, mood signaling through the gut-brain axis, and inflammatory response. These are not peripheral benefits. In any scenario where your diet shifts significantly towards shelf-stable foods, maintaining gut microbiome function is one of the first things to degrade and one of the most consequential. Beyond fiber, artichoke hearts contain cynarin, a compound with documented liver-supportive properties and a mineral density including potassium, magnesium, and folate that rivals dedicated supplement products at a fraction of the cost. A single can runs under $2.50. The store brand versions, which are disappearing first, often come in under $1.80. Preparation is straightforward. Drain the can, quarter the hearts, toss with whatever oil is available, and roast at 425 degrees for 20 minutes. They caramelize into something that does not remotely resemble an emergency food. Or chop and fold into any white bean dish for a complete, texturally interesting meal that carries significantly more nutritional complexity than the sum of its parts. Number 14. Canned roasted red peppers, the vitamin C powerhouse getting squeezed off the shelf. This one is being cut quietly, and the reason is almost insultingly mundane. Roasted red peppers do not have a strong brand identity. They are not associated with a cuisine trend. They sit in their glass jars and their cans looking like something a person might use once for a specific recipe and forget about for the rest of their life. That perception is exactly what is making them vulnerable. Two national chains are actively consolidating their roasted pepper, SK Us, in 2026, cutting store brand options and reducing total shelf presence. The space is being reallocated toward jarred salsa and higher velocity condiment products that generate better quarterly turns. From a buyer's spreadsheet, the logic is airtight. From a nutritional standpoint, it is an absolute catastrophe for anyone paying attention. A single serving of roasted red peppers contains more vitamin C than a fresh orange. Not comparable to, more than. The roasting process does reduce some vitamin C content compared to raw, but what remains is delivered in a form with additional antioxidant compounds from the carotenoids concentrated during roasting. The result is a micronutrient density per dollar that is virtually unmatched in the canned vegetable category. Beyond that, roasted red peppers are one of the most effective flavor tools in shelf-stable cooking. They add sweetness, depth, and color to any dish without adding heat. Blended into any bean soup, they become invisible but transformative. Chopped into scrambled eggs with whatever protein is available, they eliminate the monotony that is the primary enemy of sustained pantry eating. A jar costs under $2.50 right now. Buy a case and you have a vitamin C and flavor reserve that will outlast most disruptions. If this is opening your eyes, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. There's a lot more coming. Number 13. Evaporated milk. The shelf-stable dairy you keep walking past, and why that is a critical mistake. Let's establish something immediately, because the confusion around this product is exactly why it is being phased out and exactly why that is a disaster for people who understand what they are losing. Evaporated milk and sweetened condensed milk are not the same product. They are not interchangeable. They are categorically different items that happen to share shelf real estate and vaguely similar packaging, which has created a mass consumer confusion that grocery buyers are now treating as a market signal. Sweetened condensed milk is a dessert ingredient loaded with sugar. That is not what we are talking about. Evaporated milk is unsweetened, concentrated dairy with approximately 60% of its water removed, a 2-year shelf life at room temperature, and a protein and fat profile that no plant-based shelf-stable alternative can match. 2 major national chains are dramatically reducing evaporated milk inventory in 2026, redirecting that shelf space toward oat and almond milk alternatives that carry superior margins and attract significantly more marketing investment. Here's what leaves the shelf with it. When power goes out, every refrigerated dairy product in your home becomes a biological hazard within hours. Evaporated milk does not have that problem. Mix 1 part evaporated milk with 1 part water, and you have functional whole milk for coffee, for oatmeal, for any recipe that calls for dairy. The protein density per dollar exceeds every shelf-stable carton alternative currently on the market. There is also a professional kitchen technique most people have never encountered. Place an unopened can in cold water for 30 minutes, then open and whip vigorously. It thickens into a cream substitute with actual structural integrity. Pastry chefs have known this for decades. Shelf-stable households should know it now. A can costs under $2. Stock it immediately while store brand options still exist. Number 12. Canned. Pumpkin about to become a seasonal item, stripping your year-round access to one of the most nutrient-dense vegetables on the shelf. October is the problem, and October is the reason this is happening. And a pumpkin has been so thoroughly associated with autumn and consumer psychology that grocery chain buyers have now decided year-round stocking is commercially unjustifiable. Several large chains are formally transitioning pure canned pumpkin to a seasonal product, available September through November, and then gone from standard distribution for 9 months out of every 12. The commercial reasoning is impeccable. Sales spike for 1 quarter and flatline for 3. The margins during the flat period cannot justify the shelf footprint. That is a completely rational business decision that strips something nutritionally extraordinary from your year-round access without a single announcement. 1 cup of pure canned pumpkin. Not pumpkin pie filling, not the spiced, eat a sweetened product. Delivers 245% of the recommended daily intake of vitamin A in the form of beta-carotene, one of the most potent dietary antioxidants available in whole food form. More beta-carotene per serving than carrots. More fiber per cup than a bowl of oatmeal. All at 83 calories. That profile beats dedicated health supplements at a fraction of the price. The culinary utility is equally underrated. Pumpkin has almost no assertive flavor on its own. Mixed into chili, it stretches the pot by 30% without changing the taste profile. Stirred into pasta sauce, it adds viscosity, fiber, and vitamin density that is completely undetectable to anyone eating it. A 15-ounce can costs approximately $1.29 right now. Once the seasonal transition is complete, every household will reach for it simultaneously in October, and shelves will be stripped within days. Number 11. Canned green chilies, the 89-cent morale weapon. Being pulled from distribution and why this is more serious than it sounds. This will sound trivial. I need you to understand that it is not. The dismissal of this item is precisely what makes its disappearance dangerous for anyone building a functional long-term pantry. 2 large chains are cutting their store brand, green chili SKUs in 2026, pointing shelf space towards salsa and higher margin condiment products. Once the store brands are eliminated, name brand alternatives will fill whatever space remains at 2 to 3 times the price for an identical product. But the price story is actually secondary here. What is being lost is something that emergency nutrition research and military dietary psychology have documented repeatedly, and that mainstream preparedness content almost never discusses: the physiological and neurological role of capsaicin in sustained dietary function. After approximately 14 days of eating similar meals from the same limited ingredient pool, documented changes in human dietary behavior begin to emerge. Voluntary appetite suppression, deteriorating decision-making around food, measurable anxiety elevation even in otherwise healthy individuals. This is not a psychological weakness. It is a documented physiological response to food fatigue, and it erodes your functional capacity before you even recognize it is happening. Capsaicin, the compound responsible for heat in chili peppers, triggers a measurable endorphin release through neurological pathways that operate independently of psychological expectation or placebo effect. A small amount of dietary heat in a meal produces a documented mood shift. It does not restructure the meal, it changes how your brain processes eating it. One 4-ounce can of green chilies costs 89 cents and delivers 45% of the daily recommended vitamin C intake. Add it to eggs, stir it into rice, fold it into any soup or stew. 12 cans cost under $11. That is a morale reserve that lasts years on a shelf. The window to buy it at store brand prices is closing. Number 10. Canned white beans. The iron and fiber anchor being silently displaced by faster moving products. White beans, cannellini, navy, odd Great Northern are being quietly pushed to the edges of the canned bean aisle as part of ongoing SKU consolidation at several major chains. The buyers managing this space are not removing black beans. They are not removing kidney beans. Those move faster. White beans turn more slowly, and in shelf space economics, slower velocity means reduced presence, smaller facings, and eventual discontinuation of store brand options. What walks out with the store brand white beans is something genuinely difficult to replace. White beans carry the highest iron content of any common canned legume. For households that do not consume red meat regularly, whether by choice, cost, or circumstance, maintaining adequate iron intake from shelf-stable sources is a clinical concern, not a lifestyle preference. Iron deficiency does not announce itself dramatically. It erodes cognitive performance, immune function, and physical endurance gradually and insidiously before the deficit becomes clinically apparent. Beyond iron, white beans are one of the most versatile texture platforms in shelf-stable cooking. Blend half a can with any broth, and the soup becomes creamy without any dairy. Mash with garlic and olive oil, and you have a spread with 7 grams of protein per serving. Add to any tomato-based dish, and they absorb flavor completely while adding structural body. A can costs approximately $1.20 right now. Once store brands exit, organic alternatives occupy that space at $3 to $4 per can. Smash that like button, subscribe, and comment what you're stocking. This information needs to reach more people. Our number 9. Chickpeas, the resistant starch. Protein being consolidated off shelves in ways most shoppers will never anticipate. The canned bean aisle looks uniformly stocked from the outside. That uniformity is deceptive. Not all beans are being treated equally in the supply chain decisions currently underway, and chickpeas are among the most vulnerable items in that aisle despite being among the most nutritionally distinctive. 3 major chains are actively consolidating their canned bean SKU counts in 2026. Chickpeas are being reduced because black beans turn faster. Kidney beans turn faster. In a shelf space economy driven entirely by velocity metrics, chickpeas consistently underperform their nutritional value, and that disparity is now costing them their presence. Here is the specific nutritional distinction that no one is telling consumers. Chickpeas contain clinically significant quantities of resistant starch, a form of carbohydrate that completely bypasses digestion in the small intestine and instead ferments in the colon, feeding beneficial gut bacteria and producing short-chain fatty acids that reduce systemic inflammation. Research on resistant starch consumption has consistently documented improved satiety duration and meaningfully reduced post-meal blood glucose elevation compared to comparable carbohydrate loads from non-resistant sources. In a scenario where you are eating primarily from shelf-stable ingredients, that glucose regulation effect becomes practically consequential. You stay fuller longer. You avoid the energy crashes that characterize heavy processed carbohydrate consumption. No other common canned legume delivers that combination at this price point. Drain a can, toss with olive oil and salt, roast at 400 degrees for 25 minutes. The result is crispy, nutty, deeply satisfying, and nothing like cold beans from a can. Alternatively, blend a drained can with olive oil, garlic, and any acidic ingredient on hand. That is functional, complete hummus for under $1.50 with no specialized equipment required. A can costs under $1.50 today. Once store brands consolidate, organic alternatives occupy that shelf space at $3 to $4 per unit. Number 8. Fat-free. Canned refried beans. The dietary restriction. Casualty that will blindside an enormous portion of the population. There are two entirely different products being sold under the same shelf category label, and the distinction matters enormously when one of them is being discontinued. Full-fat refried beans use lard or vegetable shortening in their preparation. They carry a rich, heavy flavor profile and a fat content that disqualifies them from many medical and dietary protocols. Fat-free refried beans are cooked and mashed without any added fat. Different nutritional structure, significantly more neutral flavor, and an entirely different utility profile despite sharing the same aisle space. Fat-free refried bean store brand SK-US are being discontinued by several regional chains, particularly in distribution networks across the Southwest, with reduced orders extending through the full year in 2026. Full-fat versions outsell them. Premium organic lines generate better margins. From a buyer's perspective, the case for elimination is straightforward. From the perspective of the population managing cardiovascular conditions, elevated cholesterol, or dietary protocols that specifically exclude saturated fat, the elimination is not a minor inconvenience. In a normal environment with full grocery access, substitutes are available in every direction. When your pantry becomes your primary food source for an extended period, the absence of a low-fat staple protein is a genuine dietary constraint with compounding consequences over time. Beyond the medical population, fat-free refried beans serve a practical function. Nothing else on a shelf replicates. Open the can. Add a spoonful of green chilies, spread on crackers. No heat, no cooking equipment, no preparation time beyond 60 seconds. 7 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber. Approximate cost for the entire meal, $1.50. When store brands are eliminated, that same product in premium or organic form will run between $2.50 and $3.50. The product is identical. The price is not. Number 7. 6-ounce canned. Tomato paste. The format casualty that will create waste and cost you more money simultaneously. This one is subtle, and the subtlety is precisely why it belongs on this list at a higher position than most people would assign it. The 6-ounce cylindrical can of tomato paste is being phased out by several national chains in favor of larger 12 and 28-ounce formats. The packaging economics driving this decision are straightforward. A larger can costs nearly the same to produce, generates significantly more revenue per unit, and occupies an identical footprint on the shelf. The efficiency gain is real and unambiguous from a distribution standpoint. From a household standpoint, the change creates an immediate practical problem that most people will not anticipate until they are standing in the kitchen holding a 28-ounce can and a recipe calling for 2 tablespoons. The 6-ounce format existed because it represented a realistic single-use portion for 1 to 4-person households. Open a 28-ounce can for one recipe, and the remaining 26 ounces begins deteriorating immediately in most household refrigerators. The waste is structural, not behavioral. The nutritional case for tomato paste is simultaneously one of the least discussed and most significant in the canned goods category. The heat processing involved in producing concentrated paste increases the bioavailability of lycopene, the primary carotenoid antioxidant in tomatoes, by a factor of 2 to 4 compared to consuming fresh tomatoes. Published nutritional research has documented that a single tablespoon of tomato paste delivers more bioavailable lycopene than an entire fresh tomato eaten raw. That is not a marginal nutritional difference. 1 tablespoon transforms a pot of plain rice into a seasoned, nutritionally complex dish. 2 tablespoons give white beans depth and substance that changes the entire sensory experience of eating them. The product is doing meaningful nutritional and culinary work at a cost of approximately 79 cents per can in a format that will not exist on most major chain shelves within 18 months. The practical workaround: when you open a 6-ounce can and use part of it, portion the remainder into an ice cube tray, each cube approximately 1 tablespoon. Cover and freeze. The cubes keep for 6 months and pull out individually as needed. Zero waste, maximum utility, and complete preservation of the product's function. Buy several dozen of the small cans while the format still exists. Like, if you found this useful, subscribe for more and tell us in the comments. What's already gone from your local shelves? Peak number 6. Full-fat Thai and Vietnamese. Coconut milk. The import, contract casualty that will leave an imitation in its place. This is closely related to the next item, but the mechanism of removal is entirely different. And that difference is critical to understanding what is actually being lost. Full-fat coconut milk from Southeast Asian suppliers, the kind found in the international aisle in the distinctive cans from Thai and Vietnamese brands, is not simply a branding variation of domestic alternatives. It is a materially different product in its composition, and the composition is the entire point. Authentic Thai and Vietnamese full-fat coconut milk carries between 14 and 17 grams of fat per serving. Many domestic brands being positioned to replace them in that shelf space carry roughly half that amount. The label will appear similar. The can will sit in the same spot. The price may be comparable, but the contents are nutritionally a different product. The reason for this displacement is not consumer preference. It is import economics. Tariff adjustments and sustained thin margins on international supplier contracts have made it commercially difficult for several large chains to maintain the agreements that bring these products to domestic shelves. The decision to shift to domestic alternatives with diluted fat profiles is a procurement decision, masquerading as a seamless product transition that most consumers will never notice. Here's why the fat content difference matters beyond taste. Full-fat coconut milk from these authentic sources is one of the most concentrated dietary sources of medium-chain triglycerides available in a standard grocery store. MCTs are metabolized differently than long-chain fats, processed directly by the liver into usable energy rather than being stored. Published nutritional research has associated MCT consumption with improved cognitive function during periods of caloric stress and reduced food availability. The difference between 7 grams of fat per serving and 16 grams is not a taste preference gap. It is a meaningful, functional gap. Check the fat grams per serving before purchasing. Anything below 12 grams per serving is a diluted product. 14 to 17 grams confirms the authentic composition. That verification takes 3 seconds. At Asian grocery stores, peak authentic versions typically run under $2. At mainstream chains, closer to $2.50. Both are moving toward the exit at major retailers. Number 5. Canned coconut cream, the shelf-stable fat reserve with no real replacement being quietly eliminated. Canned coconut cream and canned coconut milk are not the same product, and if you have been treating them interchangeably, the distinction matters now more than it ever has. Coconut cream is thick, extremely dense, and high-fat. Coconut milk is a diluted version. The refrigerated carton options in the dairy aisle are something else entirely. Primarily water with stabilizers and a fat content that is a fraction of what you find in a quality sealed can. These are 3 distinct products at different price points with radically different nutritional profiles, and the one being cut is the most nutritionally valuable of the 3. Distribution contacts have indicated that several major chains are significantly reducing coconut cream. SKU counts through 2026. It ships at higher cost per unit, turns over more slowly than competing products in adjacent shelf space, and buyers have identified faster-moving alternatives that generate better margin per linear foot of shelf. The removal is a business decision that makes complete sense unless you understand what is leaving with it. Fat is not optional in human physiology. It is the substrate on which brain function, cellular repair, and hormonal signaling operate. During any period of disrupted grocery access, the fat category collapses faster than any other because it is the most dependent on perishable forms. Butter, dairy products, fresh oils that have their own vulnerability to supply chain disruption and temperature sensitivity. Coconut cream provides a dense, shelf-stable fat source with a multi-year room temperature shelf life. One single can contains approximately 445 calories of predominantly saturated fat in the form of lauric acid, one of the most bioavailable forms of dietary fat available without refrigeration anywhere in a standard grocery store. There is no equivalent product at this price point and shelf life combination. A can currently costs approximately $2.79. Once the SKU reductions are complete, diluted domestic alternatives will occupy that space at higher prices for an inferior product. Alright, number 4. Canned mackerel, the most nutritionally efficient protein on the shelf being removed because nobody is buying it. Walk into the canned fish aisle right now and look at the bottom shelf. You will find mackerel sitting there completely undisturbed. Not because it is inferior, not because it is unsafe, because it is unfamiliar, and familiarity drives velocity, and velocity determines shelf presence, and low shelf presence leads to elimination. That is the entire chain of causation, removing one of the most nutritionally extraordinary products in the store from distribution in 2026. Several large chains have communicated to seafood suppliers that mackerel orders will be significantly reduced this year. The velocity gap between mackerel and tuna is the stated justification. What that gap actually represents is one of the most significant disconnects between nutritional value and consumer behavior anywhere in the grocery store. Mackerel contains more omega-3 fatty acids per serving than canned salmon. It delivers more protein per ounce than canned tuna. It costs approximately $1.50 per can, compared to $5 for canned salmon and $2.50 for major tuna brands. This is a nutritionally superior product selling at a substantial discount, being removed from mainstream distribution for a single reason. Not enough people know what it is or why they should buy it. One practical note that changes the entire consumption experience. Buy mackerel packed in olive oil. Not brine, not water, not tomato sauce. The olive oil packed version preserves and enhances flavor over time, adds caloric density, and completely eliminates the metallic quality that characterizes brine-packed canned fish and has permanently put off most first-time buyers. The olive oil pack is a different product in terms of sensory experience. 2 tins of mackerel per week alongside sardines covers your complete weekly omega-3 requirement. We will return to that combination. Number 3. Shelf-stable aseptic tofu, the complete protein. Almost nobody puts on a preparedness list, and almost everybody should acknowledge the reaction. I see it happening already. Tofu on an emergency preparedness list. The dismissal is immediate and almost universal, and it is costing households something nutritionally specific that has no direct replacement at this price point or shelf life profile. Aseptic packaged tofu, sold in small, gig-sealed rectangular cartons under brands including Morinu, using ultra-high temperature processing and multi-layer barrier packaging, achieves a room temperature shelf life exceeding 12 months. This is not the refrigerated block from the produce section. This is not the product you need to store in water and replace every 2 days. This is a completely different item, sitting unrefrigerated in the international or health food section, waiting for shoppers who understand what they are looking at. The specific nutritional gap it fills is one of the most difficult to address through other shelf-stable means. Complete proteins, foods containing all 9 essential amino acids in adequate proportions, are rare in ambient temperature form. Most shelf-stable complete protein sources are animal products. For households managing vegetarian diets, kosher or halal dietary requirements, food allergies, or medical conditions that restrict certain animal proteins, the options in shelf-stable complete protein sources are extremely limited. Aseptic tofu is one of the only items that fills that gap without refrigeration, without cooking equipment, and without any preparation beyond opening the package. Mainstream grocery chains are actively shifting aseptic tofu towards specialty sections with reduced SKU counts as part of 2026 shelf space consolidation. The silken variety, blended directly into any canned soup, becomes completely invisible. The texture disappears. The soup becomes viscous and creamy. The protein content doubles. No detectable flavor change occurs. One package at approximately $1.89 delivers 10 grams of complete protein with a 12-month shelf life. That nutritional math does not exist anywhere else at that price. Drop a comment, like this post, and subscribe. If you share this with one person, you might actually help them. Number 2. Canned. Sardines in olive oil, the tin that does things. No supplement can replicate, leaving shelves due to import economics. I told you at the beginning that this one almost did not make the list. Not because of its nutritional profile, which is frankly extraordinary, but because of the near-universal visceral reaction most people have to the word sardines. That reaction is rooted in experience. Usually a single encounter with a poorly prepared or brine-packed product in childhood or early adulthood. And it has cost the average person something measurable in terms of dietary opportunity. Hold the reaction for 60 seconds and consider what the data actually shows. Sardines are one of the only foods that simultaneously delivers vitamin D3, omega-3 fatty acids, and highly bioavailable calcium in a single serving. Not comparable amounts. Clinically significant amounts of all three in a single tin. Vitamin D3, the form found in sardines, is absorbed by the body substantially more efficiently than the D2 form used in most plant-based supplements and fortified foods. The calcium in sardines, delivered through the soft, fully incorporated bones that are undetectable in texture, is absorbed more effectively than the calcium carbonate used in most supplement tablets. The omega-3 content in a single tin rivals or exceeds the content of most commercially sold fish oil capsules at a cost of under $2. Now the combination referenced at number 4. 2 tins of oily canned fish per week, mackerel on one occasion, sardines on another, covers your complete weekly omega-3 requirement, your daily vitamin D needs, your calcium intake, and delivers over 44 grams of complete protein across both servings. The total cost is under $4. There is no supplement stack, no meal kit, no functional food product available in any grocery store that replicates that nutritional density at that price point. A combination of European supplier contract changes and import logistics pressures is causing several major chains to significantly reduce sardine orders in 2026. Buy the olive oil-packed versions exclusively. The olive oil pack changes the flavor profile completely, producing a clean, rich, accessible